Hello and welcome one and all to the AOR Pro Mazda Championship. It's round 3 of Season 2 from Circuit of the Americas. My name is Justin, and joining me once again is Joe.
Yes, hello everyone, and we are here at a well-known circuit, one that was only built very recently, but it has become famous pretty quickly. We're at the Circuit of the Americas, of course, today, and we've got a fantastic race in store for round 3 of the season. And I'm thoroughly looking forward to it, Justin. I don't know about you, but we've got a great race ahead of us today.
Yep, this configuration especially, I think, is going to do wonders for the Star Mazda. I think it's really going to suit this car. I think we're going to see a lot of action on track. It's going to be a lot of fun. Last time out at Barber, Mark Jarvis took the win ahead of Justin Brunner, who scored his second podium out of the total 2 races he's been in so far. And Martinson took his first podium in the league's history as well. Season 1 champion Kerry Nolden struggled, however, with a spin during the first stint, which sent him on a collision course with Brunner and eventually out of the race with the DNF. As a result, though, Brunner now leads the championship with 48 points heading into this race, with race winners Jarvis and White behind him with 31 and 30 points respectively. Enough about the past, though. Let's see how qualifying went, starting with the side-by-side qualifying comparison.
So here we are at the Circuit of the Americas West configuration for a qualifying comparison on board with the Englishman Phil Reed on the left-hand side representing the AOR Blue team, and then Justin Brunner, the American, on the right-hand side for a Vortex Sim Racing at one of his several home races of the season. Coming now into the unique uphill braking zone for turn 1, a very wide entry to the corner where it can be difficult to find the right line. Phil Reed hitting the apex slightly better than Brunner on this occasion. They do seem to be pretty much equal, going down the hill and now towards the S's, starting with turn 3, a little flat out, kicking to the left before having to lift off the throttle for turn 4 and turn 5. Brunner actually slightly ahead of this point and getting very close to that sausage curve on the inside, before the track now cuts off to the left in the middle of the S's, where the full configuration would normally have carried on right, and then a little clumsy chicane in the middle of that section that they try to take as straight as possible, and then rejoining the proper circuit towards the end of the back straight, breaking down to second gear for what is here turn 10, and then moving the car back over to the left hand side for another hard braking zone, back down to second gear, hitting the apex, but keeping it quite tight to the right hand side for the next little king. Now coming into the very tricky braking zone for turn 13, where several lines can be taken, but these guys taking it pretty much equally, and there is literally nothing separating these guys. Actually, Brunner pretty much wheeled the width ahead as we now go through the faster triple apex right-hander, reminiscent of turn 8 from Istanbul Park in Turkey, just a mirrored version. And now for another very tricky corner, which is pretty much blind when you're sitting down in the cockpit, so the drivers really got to know where the apex is. And these guys have made no mistakes whatsoever down into the final corner, and Reed now looks to be slightly ahead by literally a split second. Who can get the best exit out of the corner to take pole position here? This is going to be super tight, and as we get to the line, it is Phil Reed who takes pole, his first of the championship, with a time of a 1:28.123, only 5 thousandths of a second ahead of Brunner.
So it is Phil Reed of Team AOR Blue that takes his first pole position ever for the AOR Pro Mazda Championship. This is, like I said, he's never started from pole position here before. This is going to be his first time in the league's history. I'm sure he's very excited to be representing Team AOR Blue from that first place position. He has followed very closely, just 4 1,000ths of a second to Justin Brunner in second position, our championship leader as it stands right now with his 2 podiums at Interlagos and Barber. He's going to be starting from the front row. Behind him is Govan Keeney, who had that fantastic overtake in Barber. He's going to be one to watch in just his second race ever, starting from the second row of the grid alongside Marcus Jensen. Behind him is Mark Jarvis, Tom Van Dorn in his second race ever, Kerry Nolden starting off of the front row once again, only his second time not starting from the front row. He's followed by Jamie Fluke, Michael Mittner, and Timu Valkijärvi bringing up the rear in the top 10, and it's a very close qualifying as well. The top 10 separated by less than 6 tenths of a second. You can see it's very, very close in the bottom half, especially of that top 10. Martinson is going to be starting from 11th position. He is 0.666 behind the pole position lap time. He's followed by Oliver Connor. Behind him is Peter Newman, and behind him is Alexander Trowbridge. Leanne Robinson in 15th place, followed by Daniel J. Morris in 16th place. In 17th place is Stephen Chantal, who once again qualifying right alongside his teammate Daniel Baxter, the British-Canadian racing team, showing that they are very similar in pace once again. Christoph Leister in 19th, and Gino Vandenbroek is going to be rounding out the top 20. Surely he is unsatisfied with that qualifying position. 1.3 seconds off of the pace, but really not far behind Daniel Baxter and Christoph Leiser. You can see it's very close between those guys in the middle part of this field towards the back. It's going to be very, very close. It's going to be one to watch for sure, as we keep an eye on all the drivers, of course, but that is a very tight group of cars right there if qualifying is going to be any sort of indication. In 21st position, it is Neil Lukens. He is followed by Frederick Johansson. Robert Plumley is right behind him, followed by Evan Imre. Jamie Hall is in 25th position. He's followed by Nigel Spears. Behind him is Vittorio Saltalamacchia, and behind him is William Bush. And bringing up the rear of the grid in 29th position with no time set is going to be Steve Kagerer. So he's going to be one to watch, as well as he's got numerous positions potentially to make up from that 29th position. He's going to be moving up for sure. He's got nowhere to go but up. So Kagerer as well going to be another one to watch in today's race. So that's how they're going to line up on the grid. It's time to find out what happens in the race. It's race time from Circuit of the Americas. Phil Reed is on pole for AOR Blue, his first pole position ever. Championship leader Justin Brunner is in second, and reigning champion Kerry Nolden way down on the 4th row of the grid in 7th position. Only his second time qualifying outside of the front row, and by far his worst qualifying in the league's history to date. Looks like all the cars are just about on the grid now, just waiting for those lights. There's the green light, and they're away, and that is Keeney in 3rd place. You guys might remember him from last time out at Barber. He had that fantastic overtake, which was probably my favorite of the day. Does look like Brunner trying around the outside of Reed into turn 1, but no, Reed is going to hold him off, and up at the front it does look, oh, and there's a little bit of contact there actually between, I think that was Mittner and that's Kerry Nolden actually, as they're coming into the very tight and twisty S section now. A wonderful part of this circuit, and oh man, it looks like there's a couple cars off actually, and Kerry Nolden has hit, I believe that is Michael Mittner once again, and Kerry Nolden I think is going to be out of this race. You can see the smoke pouring from his engine, and he is upside down. He is going nowhere fast.
Well, no, it's a very exciting start to the race, of course. It looks as if there is a few cars involved in that carnage, as there's a Red Devolution car, I believe, there, going wide at that turn, inviting one of the LM Rennsport cars through. And, well, it's a very, very exciting first lap of the race. It looks as if right at the front there wasn't too much action after Brunner had a look around the outside after turn 1. And as we can see here further back, coming towards back onto the main part of the circuit, and there it is, Phil Reed with a clear track ahead of him. He will be glad to have got this first lap done and dusted. Of course, like you said earlier, Justin, his first time on pole position, so those nerves probably starting to kick in as we've got a car in the pit lane there. And it's one of the ACR cars, and I'm not quite sure who it is who is in the pit lane at this early stage. It's either Vandenbroek or Valchiavi. As we can see Justin Brunner there, who is way down at the moment. I believe he's down in 4th position, and it was Vandenbroek indeed down in the pit lane at this early stage of the race. So that's going to be his race compromised at this early stage, Justin. And, well, we've still got a long time to go in this race.
Yep, 32 laps total. Interesting thing to point out. Actually, let's go ahead and take a look at the replay of this start. As was mentioned, very interesting start. Coming out of turn 1, the top 3 were all in the same order that they started, but further back, a bit more to play for. Go ahead, talk us through these replays, Joe.
Yeah, well, you can see there that well, it's definitely a difficult turn 1 to negotiate, as we've seen in so many different forms of racing since the circuit was built back in 2012. But you can see up at the right at the front there, it didn't look as if there was too much going on, but here it just looks as if Nolden got a little bit squeezed and then just went straight across the track, and there was absolutely nothing that Mittner could do about that whatsoever. And well, also Nolden was a sitting duck, as was Mittner, and it's compromised both of their races. We see a replay here of Pete Newman, who I assume got quite a good view of this incident between Martinson and Trowbridge, and indeed he just swept past, and there you can see Nolden flying up into the air. Luckily for Newman, though, he didn't get any damage whatsoever. And there you can see Mittner just tagging Nolden, and that wasn't the last they saw of each other on the first lap of the race. And I think this is just where Nolden ran out a little bit wide, and yes, he did. And there you can see that he just goes up over that curb, comes across the track. Mittner is thinking, what on earth can I do about this? And before he knows it, he has got nothing to do apart from be a sitting duck. And just finally, this is the view from Kerry Nolden. So there you see, he didn't have the cleanest of starts. And then as we come into the S section, he just runs a little bit wide on that corner, gets a little bit compromised, goes over that orange sausage curve, and then he's thinking, wow, I hope I don't get hit. And all of a sudden, he's up in the air, and that is his afternoon over. And there you can see a wheel gone, and there is no chance that he was going to be restarting, as we see a beautiful view. Maybe not so beautiful for Nolden, but of course beautiful for us viewers to watch. And flying over those curbs there before coming straight into Mittner. And just a quick thing to note as we see this replay, Martinson and Trowbridge also pitted for repairs after we saw they're coming together on lap 1. So the fuel situation is an interesting one. I don't know whether you want to talk us through that, Justin, but it may be a little bit significant for these cars that are pitting early on.
Yeah, for sure. The fuel levels in practice, people are finding that it's a lot lower fuel consumption per minute. So that's going to definitely be a big change later on in the race. That's going to mean a lot. So picking back up, we got a replay here, actually. That looks like Justin Brunner, actually. That is Justin Brunner on for the lead of this race into turn 1. Got that slipstream, got the inside line as well, and he is going to take that position fairly easily, actually. Very little to do there with Mark Jarvis. And here's a replay for Marcus Jensen, getting it all wrong at the penultimate corner. Of course, that is a blind apex corner. Very difficult to spot, especially at the high speeds. You could see Jensen there having to give back some time as he was given that corner cut penalty, and that's how he lost the position to Justin Brunner. Justin Brunner was down into 4th position at the start of lap 1. Not sure exactly what happened there as he started from 2nd place and then he was down into 4th, but he's right back in this race now. And here we are at the start of lap 9, and Brunner is certainly going to be hunting down for the lead of the race, no doubt about it. A little bit further in the back there, and it looks like a nice overtake there at turn 1. Of course, this is the west configuration of the circuit. We don't have the very, very long straight. We're missing turns 7, 8, 9, and 10, and the long straight that goes along with those corners as well, so that's going to mean a lot. Tom Van Dorn, by the way, this is his 2nd race ever with the league, 1st race of the season, and his only other experience with the league being at Brands Hatch, where he unfortunately did not have he did not have too good of a time. So this is his first real race. He's already made it a lot further in than he had previously, as we see now. Teemu Valkjärvi actually putting a lot of pressure on Mark Jarvis. But as you were mentioning, Joe, yeah, the fuel consumption is very, very low at this track, which means the pit stop window has pretty much been open since lap 1, which is actually great news for drivers like Michael Mittner and also for Gino Vandenbroek, for example. Drivers that had to pit at the end of lap 1, if they filled up their tanks as high as it'll go, they will actually be able to make it to the end of this race. So there is some good news there. Of course, though, the regulations do state that you do need to stop for fuel, specifically need to stop for fuel in these races. So even though you might be able to do the entire race on a single tank of fuel, that goes against the regulations here. As we see, actually, a nice move there. I think that was from Marcus Jensen. Yeah, I do believe that was Marcus Jensen on Justin Brunner taking 2nd place in this race, and or I'm sorry, taking 3rd place in this race. Govan Keeney up into 2nd place at the moment, but a nice move into turn 1 there.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, those two, I think, will be at it all afternoon. It looks as if they're very much fighting for that final podium position. But here, as we ride on board with Teemu Valkjärvi, this is quite an intense battle there. I believe for 5th place, in fact. Currently, just sitting behind Tom Van Dorn, who's starting his first race of the season. Of course, he missed the first 2 races of the season. So he'll be looking to hit the ground running this afternoon, but Valkjärvi, of course, a veteran of the league, will be looking to get past pretty soon as we look further back in the pack there. But Valkjärvi, as we come now towards the end of the lap, I believe, and Jamie Fluke is running just behind in the Red Devolution GP car. Of course, he was absent in the last round of the race, so he's got a little bit of ground to make up after starting well in the first race. But here you can just see that we've got a few little battles going on all around the track. It doesn't look as if there are sort of the pack is too close together, but at the moment it looks as if there's just sort of small groups of cars. So it looks as if we're going to have battling all afternoon as we've had in the first two races. We haven't seen much at the front of the field, right at the front of the field, between Phil Reed and Govad Keeney. I believe Phil Reed's still keeping that lead. He's just sort of monitoring the lead at the moment, I'm sure. He doesn't want to push too much. And Reed, I believe, has a gap at the moment of about a few seconds, so he's got a nice little buffer to Keeney at the moment. But at this stage of the race, we're about a third of the way through, just over a third through the race. And we're not seeing a terrible amount of overtaking at this point in the race, as Justin mentioned earlier. We don't have that long back straight that runs down to turn 12, as you can see, the full configuration of the circuit. This is the end of the full circuit. And now you can see Justin Brunner taking back third position, I believe, from Marcus Jensen. So that battle is, well, definitely not over. But, of course, it looks as if Jensen did cut the corner there. So he was given a slowdown from the stewards, and once again riding on board with Valkyarvi, who is very much in pursuit of that 5th place. And well, like I said, we're a third of the way through this race, Justin, and we've got a lot more battling still left to go.
Yeah, Valkyarvi having a fantastic race, actually, which is fantastic to see. He's a really great driver. He started in 10th position. He's up into 6th, and as you mentioned, hunting down that 5th place position now, trying to pull himself up into that the top 5, and he's certainly very close. He is coming under attack as well from behind, so he does need to watch out. He can't just sit back and relax, of course. But it's looking like a great race for him. Tom Van Dorn, as you mentioned as well, in that 5th place position. Up from 6th. I'm not sure who he got by, actually. I think he got by Jarvis, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, both drivers doing well up from their starting positions on the grid, so looking quite good for them as we're in the middle part of lap 12 now. But yeah, we've got all 4 Red Devolution cars, both of the Red Devolution racing cars and both of the Red Devolution GP cars as well. So you guys are going to be seeing quite a bit of that black and yellow and black and orange, or black and red, excuse me, paint schemes. Last time out, Morris, of course, the only representative for either of the Red Devolution teams, but this time out at Circuit of the Americas, we got all 4. And just to touch back on what you were talking about, Joe, it does seem it's a little bit more spread out. We do have those same sort of packs that we were seeing in Barber, but they definitely are a little bit further spread out, these packs. Valkyarvi now coming under attack in this sort of reverse turkey double apex right-hander, which is not flat out for these cars. I did check with some drivers prior to this broadcast, and just to see how they were navigating that fantastic corner, or a couple of corners. Really, it's 3 corners actually, but there is a little bit of a lift there, and it's stuff like that that may actually be causing the fuel consumption to be so low. All the lifting and coasting, and it looks like actually Teemu Valkyarvi might be coming under attack. He's got the outside line for turn 1. Is he going to be able to defend that position? He does successfully from the car of Jamie Fluke there in the Red Devolution GP car, and very nicely done. Turn 1, I would say, one of the highlights of this circuit. There's a lot of lines you can take, and it really makes for some great racing. So picking back up now we're past the halfway point of this race. This is the battle for 5th position, as we saw very briefly there. And Neil Lukens actually for AOR Red taking a position there at the end of the straight, and it does look like his teammate is going to try and follow him through past Steve Kager there. That is Martinson just behind him. Interesting set of corners here. You really get mixed reviews from the drivers at these sections. Oh, and he's gone very wide there. I wonder if that's going to be a free position for Martinson. Govan Keeney now, though, is in 2nd place. It does look like Justin Brunner has broken himself away from Marcus Jensen. Look at that gap to Jensen now. I would say he is now firmly in that 3rd place position. You can see Brunner really really closing in now toward the later stages of this race on Govan Keeney. Of course, Brunner only 0.04 of a second slower than Phil Reed in qualifying, so we know that he's got the pace to at least keep up with Phil Reed. But of course, Phil is not going to be able to relax or slow down. He's got to keep it at 100% the entire time, but he's just got to make sure. And it does not look like Martinson actually was able to get by Kagerer despite how wide he went there at turn 13. And it does look like Martinson actually now losing some time to his teammate Lukens, pulling away from Kagerer there. Kagerer possibly slowing down Martinson a little bit. Of course, Martinson, who would have already had his stop, though, is in a pretty good position and running pretty well. Of course, he is down certainly not in the top 10. I'm not even sure he's in the top 20 at the moment. But like I said, he has made that stop, and surely he is going to be looking to get by Kagerer here as soon as he can.
Yes, I think Martinson is actually a lap down at the moment, so obviously due to the lap 1 repairs. So it'll be interesting to see whether he can actually get past Kagerer and maybe spoil his race. So I don't think Martinson will be scoring many points this afternoon, but I think if he can get past Kagerer, then he may be aiding his teammate Lukens sort of later on in the race. But you can see there that Justin Brunner is ahead of Govan Keeney, currently in second position. Of course, Keeney, only his second race in the leagues, I believe, so he's putting in a very, very good showing as we're riding on board with one of the Team Tortoise cars, which is Christoph Leister fighting with Frederick Johansson. So as they come through back onto the main circuit now, Johansson is currently leading the LM Rennsport driver. Leister, of course, was an absentee last time out at Barber, but this is for the 13th place at the moment. So we're sort of the lower reaches of the points, most certainly in the lower reaches of the field, but every position does certainly count, and I'm sure Leister will be looking to get up the field. We haven't seen much of the Team Tortoise cars this season, and we haven't really seen too much of the LM Rennsport cars. Of course, we've had one absentee for each race. Mittner was absent for the first race, and Leister absent at Barber, so they'll be looking to make up some ground in the championship. But of course, after Mittner's contact on lap 1, they won't be scoring too many points this afternoon. But you can see here Martinson still keeping on the tail of Kagerer, even though he is 1 lap down, as we mentioned earlier. But I'm sure he's definitely keeping Kagerer honest, as now it looks as if he's got someone on his tail. It'd be interesting to see whether he'll have to let him through. But there we are, still riding with this battle, and that's one of the Conducci racing cars, I believe, yeah, he's a lap down, so it's Tom Van Dorn and Mark Jarvis fighting over 5th place at the moment. So this will be an interesting battle to follow over the last 10 laps of the race, and see who will be taking that 5th position. But currently it is the number 46 car that is leading that. Well, it isn't really a train of cars, but a duo of cars. So that will definitely be a battle to watch till the end of the race, and well, we've still got plenty of battling left in the last 10 laps.
Yeah, as we're coming towards the end of lap 23, 2/3 through this race now, and into this really tricky sort of Mickey Mouse section, but it offers some interesting, much like turn 1, variations on lines that allow drivers to try and get inventive in their ways that they're going to try and get by. Tom Van Dorn, though, staying behind for now, behind Johansson, and sticking behind him in that dirty air now through the double apex right-hander, the reverse turkey, before going through the blind apex penultimate corner. And there is Johansson pulling off to the side. He's going to dive into the pits for his one and only stop, and I'm sure he's just going to be putting in the required 1 gallon of fuel. And we're picking back up. This is Evan Imre, and he's got just behind him a few cars, actually. This is that battle between Kagerer and Martinson once again, and way down the order are these 2 cars. Good spot, by the way, on the Martinson being a lap down. Certainly that is unfortunate. Right off his good result in Barber, I'm sure he's going to be very disappointed with how this race is going for him so far here today at Circuit of the Americas. But Martinson is a very mature, respectful driver, so he will bounce back, no doubt about it. Teemu Valkjärvi, though, is still leading this very small pack. Oh, and it looks like we might have a move down into turn 10 and up the middle, or excuse me, up the inside he goes. That was Mark Jarvis. And oh no, he's coming right back at him, though, in this Mickey Mouse section. It's a double right-hander here, so if you get the inside line there, that is very, very good. But he hangs it around the outside, does Jarvis. That's going to give him the inside line now. They are still side by side coming out of that turn 13 corner. Very, very close between them. But no, Jarvis on the outside, I don't think he's going to be, yeah, he can't hang around the outside of that reverse. But he's coming right back at him as soon as I think this battle is done. He's got the inside line of the penultimate corner, but it does look like Tom Van Doorn is carrying a little bit more speed, and Jarvis defending the inside line now for the final corner. Tom Van Doorn again, though, carrying a little bit more speed as they come onto the start-finish straight to start lap 24. He's going to have the inside line for turn 1, but as we've seen before, that means very little with turn 1 just because of how it works out. But it does look like he's actually moved past him with that extra speed coming out of the final corner, and that is going to be job done from Tom Van Doorn. He moves up ahead of Mark Jarvis. I mean, fantastic driving from both of those drivers right there. That was fantastic.
Well, yeah, definitely the battle of the race for sure. But it looks as if it is Van Doorn that has got the upper hand at the moment, but Jarvis most certainly won't be giving up on that. But currently looks as if Teemu Valkjärvi has pulled a massive gap on these guys, so these two battling is probably compromised the race a little bit. Most certainly put 5th place out of the question at the moment. But nonetheless, they will be looking to be scoring some good points this afternoon, of course. And well, it looks as if the lead of the race is probably out of the question at the moment. Phil Reed has pulled a pretty big gap at this stage of the race. So I think this is the battle that we will be staying with until the end of the race. Of course, just 7 and a bit laps left in this Grand Prix as they come through that double apex right-hander. That is probably one of the most spectacular corners on the track for sure. And coming towards turn 17 and turn 18 on this layout of the track, of course, on the west section of the Circuit of the Americas. And coming through the final corner, it doesn't look as if Jarvis has had many opportunities to get past on that lap. But of course, he will be hanging in the slipstream as we've now got Daniel J. Morris in one of the Red Devolution GP cars. And I'm not quite sure who he's running behind. Is it one of the team? It's either one of the Team AOR cars or one of the LM Rennsport cars. It did look as if it was a LM Rennsport car. So
I think it's Leicester.
Yeah, I assume it's Leicester. Obviously, with Mittner being out of the race.
Oh no, that is Mittner. That is Mittner, actually.
Wow, I'm not quite sure how he's done it, but he is still running in this race. It's Mittner, of course, in the 87 car. And, well, I'm not sure whether he's a lap down or not. But anyway, we are here with the battle for 3rd position, I believe. Or 2nd position. And yes, he is still running a few laps down after that contact. But Govan Keeney, this battle for 3rd position will not go away. Of course, Justin Brunner looks as if he has pulled a gap on these guys. Unsurprisingly, after showing a lot of pace in those first 2 races for the Vortex Sim Racing team. But Brunner is apparently he's slowly catching Phil Reed, so it could be a little bit of a battle going on for the final few laps of the race. But going into the final corner now, it's a beautiful view, of course, from the front of the cars as we're running very, very close to the track. So it's a beautiful view, of course, coming up to the back of that LM Rennsport car of Michael Mittner as Keeney pulls out of the slipstream and goes past. With relative ease, of course, I'm sure Keeney would have been running in the slipstream just to try and pull a little bit of a gap on that Red Devolution car of Morris. But yeah, just 7 or, well, less than that, I believe just 6.5 laps left in this Grand Prix now. And we've still got some battling left to do for the final podium position.
And actually, I'm just getting word now that Keeney did pit, actually. So he's dropped back a little bit as a result of that pit. He pit at the end of lap 24. The first of the front runners to come into the pits. Reed and Brunner yet to pit. And actually, here they are, our leaders right here. Phil Reed, Justin Brunner, running 1 and 2 right now at the end of lap 26. And as we mentioned, Brunner has been very slowly catching Reed for this first place position. Brunner in a very comfortable 2nd position. After dropping to 4th at the start of this race, race, and then trading with Marcus Jensen back and forth a little bit. He has started to come back in this race. He's climbed all the way back up to first place to Phil Reed, and he is definitely getting a slipstream now with just 6 laps remaining in this race. He is right up behind Phil Reed, but as I mentioned, Govan Keeney did pit at the end of lap 24. So, however, we have seen he has been in some traffic, and we can see here the front runners really not dealing with too much traffic. It seems quite a wide open circuit for the two of them. So I'm not sure. I think Govan Keeney may have rolled the dice a little bit and tried to do an undercut on these guys and see if maybe he could close down that gap. But I'm not so sure it is working out for him at this moment. Of course, this is Justin Brunner's home race, one of numerous home races for Justin Brunner, of course. Barber also being an American circuit as well. But I'm sure Justin Brunner is extra motivated here today at Circuit of the Americas in Texas, and running very closely behind Reed now. And you gotta assume that there's some sort of psychological effect that's even coming into play here. Just imagine, put yourself in Reed's shoes. You start from pole position, you break away, you've got a really nice gap all race long, and then all of a sudden here we are in the final third of this race, and Justin Brunner has not only caught up to you, but he is running directly on your gearbox. He's got to be a little bit worried right now with 5 laps remaining.
Oh yeah, most certainly. I mean, whoever wins out of these two will of course be our 3rd different winner of the season. And Reed is actually a controller user, and if he does win this race, he would be the first driver in the 2 seasons of the league to win by using a controller. So that's another interesting little fact to note. And now as we're further down the field, they're still fighting over positions further down in the race. I believe that is one of the British-Canadian racing cars. But now we're back with the battle for the lead. Phil Reed still just about holding off Justin Brunner, who will be looking to win one of his home races as they come now down into turn 10 on this layout of the circuit. Of course, is turn 12 on the Formula 1 and MotoGP layout, as they now come through this Mickey Mouse section down into turn 13, a very difficult double apex left-hander, which can be a little bit difficult for the drivers to negotiate, but now they come through this sweeping right-hander. Brunner will be running in the dirty air of Phil Reed as they come now down to the final 2 corners of the track, turn 17 and turn 18. Brunner will be looking not to run wide on this corner. Of course, there have been a few issues with track limits in this race, but he does keep it all within the white lines. Just 4 laps remaining now in this race, and boy have we got a great battle. It doesn't look like Brunner has pulled any moves on Reed yet, but that might change going down into turn 1, or is he a little bit too far back? I think he is just a bit too far back. But no, he's closing, and there you see the first little feint from Brunner. 4 laps left remaining in this race, and we've still got a lot of racing left to do.
Yeah, first signs there, as you mentioned, of Brunner really having a look there. It does actually look like he may have lost a little bit of time through turns 1 and 2. I'm not sure if it had anything to do with that little kind of fake move that he was having a look at the inside. He may have just been trying to get clean air to get that downforce, of course, under braking so that he could brake as late as possible before moving back onto the racing line. But it does look like Phil Reed has this under control as it stands right now. Of course, both drivers still yet to pit, though, as we're coming to the end of lap 29, just 3 laps remaining after we finish this one. But as it stands right now, as I mentioned, Phil Reed does seem to have things under control. Now, Tom Van Dorn heading up towards turn 1. He's just starting lap 29 now, just to give you guys an idea of the gap that Phil Reed and Justin Brunner have to the remainder of the field. Tom Van Dorn running in a comfortable top 10 position, and I mean, he's half a lap down on these guys. Quite a big gap between them. Again, though, Phil Reed really seems to have this race under control. It seems Justin Brunner has lost a little bit of time in this race. And are we going to see them dive into the pits? We do see them dive into the pits at the end of lap 29 here, so they will have 3 laps to complete in this race as they all get it all slowed down and come into the pit lane. They're on that pit lane speed limiter. It's quite a long pit lane, of course, especially when you're going this slow. It feels like it goes forever, and he's just waiting, looking to see where his pit box is. Of course, he'll have a very fine gentleman standing in front of where he needs to stop, and of course it is the final pit box because they did start from first and second. And Justin Brunner, that is a very, very quick pit stop from Justin Brunner, I mean, he barely stopped. It seemed like he was hitting a stop sign in traffic or something, and we can see him now going through turn 1, and I think Phil Reed is actually just coming out of the pits now, so that is quite a gap. Justin Brunner has managed to jump Phil Reed, take the lead of this race, and with quite a gap behind him as well.
Yeah, well, it's very interesting, you know, to see such a disparity between the two drivers in it. Obviously, we said about the fuel regulations earlier on in the race, and that you know, it is possible for these cars, and they're there to go for the whole race. And there you can see that car number 3, which is Justin Brunner, is under investigation for failing to take any fuel during the mandatory pit stop. And you mentioned earlier, Justin, that it is mandatory for all cars to take at least 1 gallon of fuel, which is obviously why there was such a difference between the two cars. Well, that definitely isn't the last we see of that. And it's quite a shame, actually, that might be the last that we see of that battle. I mean, it's such a shame for it to be decided like that, but well, we'll have to see what the sort of penalty is for Brunner, but I can't imagine he's going to be getting away with that whatsoever. And of course, Reed, when Brunner went out of the pit stop so quickly, you know, Phil Reed must have been thinking, what on earth is he doing, you know? But well, maybe Reed will be able to get this race win, because I'm sure, like I said, that is not the last we'll see of that. And well, it'll be interesting to see what actions the stewards take.
Yeah, Phil Reed, I'm sure, because obviously he will not have any sort of communication with the stewards in that cockpit of this Star Mazda, as we are having a look at Neil Lukens right now for Team AOR Red. He's coming under attack from Evan Imre right now. But of course, as I mentioned, Phil Reed would have no communication from the stewards whatsoever, so he has no idea that Justin Brunner is under investigation. All he can do is drive as fast as he possibly can and just hope for the best, which I'm sure that's what he's doing right now. But I love this camera angle, by the way, that we've been getting at turn 13 of this layout. That you could really see the difference in the lines that people are taking, different racing lines. There's a lot of options that you can use to get yourself out of that dirty air and just really stick with the car in front. And Evan Imre was showing a perfect example of that, actually, as he is running behind the AOR red car of Neil Lukens as they are coming now onto the start-finish straight, and they're going to start their penultimate lap 31 of this 32-lap race. And there we can see Martinson, actually his Lukens' teammate, coming onto the start-finish straight as well. And there's that wonderful shot of them climbing that hill. I have climbed that hill on foot, and I can tell you it is quite steep, and it will get you very, very tired. But of course, these guys have the Star Mazdas to power them up that hill. And Evan Imre staying behind Neil Lukens as it stands right now. And the leading drivers now on the final lap of this race, lap 32 out of 32. And as you mentioned, we were kind of robbed a little bit of a nice battle between Reed and Brunner, but thankfully plenty of cars still going on this track.
Yeah, you know, we've most certainly still got a little bit of a battle on our hands here between Imre and Lukens. Lukens, a little bit of front wing damage for him. So Imre will most certainly be looking to attack that, and of course with just 2 laps left for these guys, or a lap and a half as it is now, as they come down into turn 13, and I'm sure pretty much the final opportunity for an overtake will come down into the first turn, and Imre will be looking to just put himself in a good position to get past Lukens, and well, it's you know, that's really is the final opportunity, because there really aren't many overtaking opportunities, of course, in the first sector, seeing as it is just an S section, and then we go into the Mickey Mouse section of the final sector before coming into the double apex right-hander. And now Imre will be looking to attack Lukens going into the first corner. But there we can see that Justin Brunner comes around the final corner to possibly take victory. Of course, we don't quite know the full story behind the fuel situation yet, but he does finish his race in front of Phil Reed. And there you can see he is still under investigation for failing to take fuel under the mandatory pit stop. And Phil Reed there comes home in second place. But it could be the lead, and who knows. But Lukens currently is running in 15th position. As there you can see, Imre will be looking to get past to take some minor points, and coming towards turn 10 now on this layout, and on the final lap of the Grand Prix. And there you can see the British Canadian racing car of I'm not quite sure who it is actually. It's Stephen Chantal, but Gobert Keeney, in fact, finished in 3rd place ahead of Marcus Jensen in 4th. So Keeney taking a very well-deserved podium. As we said, he's driven very well all afternoon. But it's now, we've just got the final few cars finishing this race. And I believe there you can see the number 46 car of Tom Van Dorn finishing the race just about. And parking the car at the end of turn 1. But very, very mixed up field, it has to be said, at the end of this race. With the cars finishing at different points and very well distributed. But there you can see Imre. Is he going to take a look at the final corner? No, he isn't. And Lukins takes what will probably feel like a quite well-deserved 15th place. And that just about concludes today's race. So Phil Reed took the race victory at the Circuit of the Americas ahead of Justin Brunner after the American was in fact handed a 10-second penalty after the checkered flag had been waved. Of course, for not taking in that minimum fuel at the pit stop. Gobert Keeney took his 1st position in the leagues in 3rd position ahead of Marcus Jensen and Teemu Valkjärvi. They rounded out the top 5 with Teemu Valkjärvi in fact having a very impressive afternoon. I was incredibly impressed with his drive. Of course, driving away from Fluke, Van Dorn and Jarvis, who finished 6th, 7th and 8th. Van Dorn and Jarvis, in fact, finishing just 7 1/1000ths of a second apart from each other, but Tom Van Dorn did, in fact, take 7th position. Peter Newman and Daniel J. Morris rounding out the top 10 with Stephen Chantal there in 11th place, ahead of Oliver Connor for the Oracle Racing team in 12th. Fredrik Johansson will be incredibly impressed, I'm sure, with his 13th position. Just the fact that he managed to hold off the threat from behind, I'm sure, was good enough for him. Daniel Baxter, it was, in the British Canadian Racing team, finishing just behind him. And Neil Lukins as well, he'll feel that he had a very well-deserved 15th place, finishing ahead of the other Tortoise Racing car of Evan Imre. Christoph Leister finished in 17th position, with Nigel Spears being the last of the non-lap cars. He finished all 32 laps of the Grand Prix, with Gino van den Broek down in 19th position, of course, being caught up in a lap 1 incident ahead of Steve Kagura. Jamie Hall finished 21st ahead of Alexander Trowbridge and Nut Martinson. The 23 drivers finishing within one of the lead lap. With Leon Robinson, we didn't see a lot of him this afternoon. He was 2 laps off the lead lap. With Vittorio Saltalamacci finishing in 25th position. Michael Mittner was a full 4 laps off the lead after his lap 1 incident. And Robert Plumley, William Bush and Kerry Nolden were the 3 drivers who didn't finish today's race. But it was very much an action-packed race, and Kerry Nolden, the Season 1 champion, will be looking to bounce back next time. Seeing as he's now very, very long way down in the Drivers' Championship, because Justin Brunner is leading the championship by a full 26 points. With that victory being incredibly important to Phil Reed. He's currently in 2nd in the standings, ahead of Mark Jarvis, Jamie Fluke and Daniel J. Morris. Marcus Jensen is in 6th position, 41 points off the lead, and Patrick White in the Carbon Racing team is in 7th position, still staying there, staying that high, even though he didn't show up to this race. Daniel Baxter in 8th position, he's quietly gone about his business, as is Leanne Robinson in 9th place, with Peter Newman in 10th for the Red Devolution Racing team. But that lead from Brunner is a full 26 points after just 3 rounds, so it'll be interesting to see how that battle between himself and Reed develops. Andreas Murch in 11th position, ahead of Nut Martinson in 12th. And Gobert Keeney, after that brilliant result, takes him up to 13th position, ahead of Stephen Chantal and the Season 1 champion, Kerry Nolden, down in 15th position currently, accumulating just 20 points over the course of the season. In fact, the gap between 1st and 2nd is greater than the amount of points that Nolden has accumulated over the first 3 races. He's in fact on the same amount of points as Robert Plumley, and Evan Imre is just 1 point behind. Teemu Valkjärvi, that impressive result for him, has taken him up into 18th position, and ahead of his teammates, Gino van den Broek, who is the only driver who I believe has scored a half point this season, and Alexander Trowbridge in 20th position, ahead of Michael Mittner in 21st and Tom Van Dorn in 22nd. Christoph Leister accumulating just 13 points from the first 3 races. He is on the same amount of points as Fredrik Johansson in the 2nd Team Tortoise car. Harley Lewis has had a disappointing start to the season, just like his teammate Oliver Connor. They are just 25th and 27th in the standings, being separated by Vittorio Saltalamacci in the Conducci racing car. Alexander Van Rompuy in 28th, but of course, that was his, he's only actually showed up to 1 race this season. And Neil Lukins, after that well-earned 15th place, is in 29th, ahead of Jamie Hall in 30th position. But you can see further down the field, there really isn't a great points difference between all of those drivers, of course. And then the final 2 drivers to have scored a point this season are Steve Kagura and Nigel Spears, both, of course, in the North Atlantic Racing Team. Phil Blythe, Gregor Reinbeck Jr., Joshua Anderson, and William Bush are yet to get off the mark this season. But there are still drivers who, I'm sure Gregor Reinbeck Jr. and Phil Blythe, of course, they'll be looking to definitely make an impact some point in the season. But you know, a full 32 drivers have currently scored a point in the opening 3 races of the season, and there has been an incredibly competitive first 3 races, of course, with 3 different race winners. But it all sees Red Devolution GP leading the Drivers' Championship, sorry, the Constructors' Championship, with Jamie Fluke and Daniel J. Morris at the wheel of their cars. The Vortex Sim Racing team are currently in 2nd place. They are a one-man team of Justin Brunner, and they're lying ahead of the Team AOR Blue, comprised of Phil Reed, who's currently 2nd in the championship, and the Season 1 champion Kerry Nolden, with Red Devolution Racing at 10 points behind Team AOR Blue. And British Canadian Racing, they've quietly gone about their business this season, and are currently 5th, ahead of SDC Motorsports, comprised of Andreas Murch and Tom Van Dorn, who had an impressive drive today. And yep, they're in 6th position. But there you can see that just the 7-3 Motorsport team are the only team not to have scored a point this season, with ACL Crekkan GP notably down in 14th position in the team's championship. They'll be looking to definitely get up the standings, as will the Oracle Racing team, who have had quite a bit of bad luck this season, just like Team AOR Red. You know, got 2 very talented drivers in Martinson and Lukins, with the LM Rennsport team, who just don't seem to have had a break either this season. You know, it's a common theme further down that team's championship that none of them seem to have been getting the breaks this season that they probably would have liked. Of course, the North Atlantic Racing team, both of their drivers currently only on 5 points this season. But next time, it may be a different story for all of them. We're currently 3 rounds into this season, and round 4 will be at Monza for the full GP layout. Of course, 11 turns and 24 laps around the 3.6 mile circuit. Hope you can join us then, and on behalf of myself and, of course, from Justin, I would like to wish you a very good day. If you're not having one already, then do take care of yourself, and yeah, we'll see you next time. Bye bye.